Is Hurley in here again?
He is.
He's a little wanderer today. He's really happy to see you. All right, so we're about to be on, and we are actually on now. Yeah, it seems like everything's working. Cool. Yeah, it feels so cozy in here. All right, you ready? I'm gonna basically start it up here in a second. I mean, I'm just doing tests right now, make sure the audio's working and everything. And we are technically live, but we'll actually like start rolling in a minute. All right. This is Skylight Huddle, episode 9. These mics sound a lot better than the other mics did.
It's true.
So thank you for bringing these mic stands. These are awesome.
Yeah.
So a little bit different setup today. I actually have another camera angle. Maybe won't use it if it doesn't freak out. And also got like a looper system going on here, which I'm kind of excited for. So we're gonna just, I guess I'll show you a little bit how it works. And I figured since you've had the drum machine the last few times, I'd just let you keep rocking that and figuring out how that works still. And so yeah, so basically everything starts with this button I programmed to start the beat, and yeah, the audio will cut out a little bit at the beginning of starting and stopping loops, but the good thing is we don't have to do that very often, starting and stopping loops. The only time we'd actually have to probably do it is if you want to start a new idea, so that's kind of cool. Yeah, and then you have control of my polygon, so you can pull that fader down anytime you want. In terms of like how it works, I have all the audio from the guitar and the synthesizer being sent to the DAW, and then the DAW through buses are sending to delays, and I can turn on and off the sends to those delays using these buttons here. And then if I don't like what I did, I can actually clear the loop by turning on and off the delay. I figured out that it resets the delay entirely, so you can actually press that. It sends a signal on the press, and then sends another signal on the release. So it turns on and off the delay. So for instance, if here, give me just a little rhythm there. Like, I don't know, something steady. And it's based off the, the tempo, whatever your tempo is, so for instance, I'm about to enable the bus. So now it's on. I don't have to do anything in timing. I just have to follow the rhythm. So I guess that's on a different key, isn't it? There you go. All right, here we go. Now I can control the volume of each instrument that I control in the looper right here. And now that's going to loop in time of what I played. That's pretty bright. So see, I didn't like that, so I can just hit the clear real quick. And you'll hear like a little beep because it's the delay feedback being real fast. So there's a little quirkiness to this. Eventually I'll hopefully have an Ableton rig and we'll just make it easier, but so here. Just do something simple like this. So that's all I wanted. And I'll just loop in time. Now if I want to add another thing, I can... So the way I set it up is there's 4 different loopers on here, and each one is a different parameter of length. So the first 2 are the same length, which is 2 bars. Yeah. The third one is 4 bars, and then the last one is like a weird off time. It's like a quick one. I think it's like a third, it's like a dotted half note, I think. So for instance, if I press this one, it'll just keep looping on that. And then if I don't want that, just erase it real quick.
No, it isn't gonna work because none of it starts on the 1, so I can't. There's no way for me to build patterns that are on time.
Yeah, because I was following the metronome and not the 1. So what we'd have to do is probably come up with some way to signify the 1, and that needs to tell me. So maybe if the hi-hat did a different like sound on the 1, or if like you use like maybe a kick on the 1 just to kind of signify it.
I mean, you kind of just got to look at it and see where it's starting over.
Yeah, I could do that too. Oh, it didn't have the loop enabled.
managed to get an octave and a fifth? How? That doesn't make any sense. What are the chances? Like really low, right? Like really low. That doesn't make any sense. Is that a third? How? I'm just guessing. The time. I'm trying to make it snap and then snap back to change the pitch. I don't know how I'm getting that close. That doesn't make any sense. Because now I have a major triad now. Somehow of noise.
That's crazy.
Like that doesn't make any sense. I managed to make a sound that sounds like rain. I don't want to change it. Like, I'm so happy about listening to it that I don't want to do anything.
You got rain, and it sounds amazing. Here,
Rain with a regular tempo in it too.
Yeah, there wasn't one.
Sorry,
Oh,
just
that's
because I
okay.
wanted to make sure I could sample this later with nothing else in it.
Yeah.
Dude. Yeah, it sounds like something's running. And you could simulate it coming and going by varying the pitch slightly. If it has the right slope, it'll sound like Doppler. That was unintentional.
Oh man, that was loud. That might have peaked out. I should have.
Sorry.
Well, it's partly my fault it peaked out on the stream because I didn't put a limiter on the track. That's the
no.
one thing I forgot to do. Well, there's several things I forgot to do, but that's the one thing I'll claim I forgot to do. And I gotta pee.
We'll do it.
Here, I'm gonna actually stop this looper for. So yeah, you only hear clicks in between loop starts, which is fine for our purposes. Also, you're gonna have to sample that off the stream.
It's fine.
Okay.
It's noise. Like. That sounds like when a record gets to the end.
Sorry, I started you. We'll see how long this recording will last. Now, I have it set up where it can record what we're doing. I just didn't do it for concern that it might not hold out very long. But if that's the case, then we just won't do it again. Yeah, this is really cool with all the noise. All the noise in there sounds really cool. We do that kind of stuff, and then you can turn the resonance up. and then just sweep it low. That sounds really cool. Turn that off. I want to hear what the noise sounds like. I have it on the setting called low. It's got a cool sound to it. That's a weird sound. It's just like noise over here and then... Oh, that's because of that. Okay. This is the actual sound.
I like the sound of just straight up noise just with the filter way down. You know? Sounds like a lot of water. I like that. I've always liked that sound.
It kind of sounds like snow.
Really?
Like a cold day, I mean. I guess it sounds like a heater running to me.
Interesting, because it's funny, because after you said that, I could see the heater, and I could feel the heat off it and everything, right?
Yeah.
But until then, all I could think was, like, all that was in my head was a ton of water coming over something, right? Like a waterfall or that kind of thing.
Sounds like that too. Now I got that in my head. That's cool. Yeah, you can control the peaks a little bit.
That'd be like you being underwater. So if you sweep it, every time that the low end comes back in, that's your head coming above the water.
I like that machine noise in there too. Sounds like a broken piece of the equipment. Got more kick than I realized.
Yeah, it's just not in any of the actual patches.
Yeah. When you use the wave table in here, it can get some pretty gnarly sounds. So I guess that's just because it's got a good like sampler in it, or what do you? I don't even know what kind of chip that would be, or what kind of
For what?
Like what's control? Like I wonder what's controlling the wave table in here, because you can put a sound sample in there, and then controlling the shape controls like piece of the wave, right? So like if you have like a square wave in there, it can be a certain amount of length. I haven't done a lot of research on this.
I thought you said wavetables don't do that. I thought the length is determined by the note. Like it's always the same wave, but effectively it's being played faster.
I think that's granular, isn't it?
I don't know.
My interpretation of wavetable is like, yeah, it is kind of the note.
Because I thought that's why it sounds grimier the lower the note you go. Because it's you're basically trying to play the same sample, but it's like you're what would it technically be? Well, you're sampling the same chunk of audio over a longer period of time. So like by default, it's the same thing like with tape. When you run the slower you run the tape, the dirtier it sounds.
Dirtier it sounds.
It's the same. I thought it was the same thing with wavetables, but maybe I'm wrong.
I think okay, and this is super uneducated because I probably should do more research on this, but up until this point, here's what I've understood about it. I can't say this with any certainty, but you know how like you make oscillators and they have shapes, right? So you have a square wave, which is on and off. And then there's sine waves. You know, they change over a cosine or whatever.
Sure.
So they all have a different unique property and unique shape to them, right? So what a wavetable is it takes the audio you fed it, and it takes a slice of the wave, like a section, like milliseconds less of like audio, and it runs that through an oscillator. But then it also smears the edges, so you have characteristics of what the sound could become and sound like. And then as you sweep, you're sweeping along where the shape of the waveform is.
Interesting.
That's my understanding, and I know that's a little different than granular, which takes kernels and it stretches, and it takes like a grain, they call it an audio grain, and it stretches it in different ways and smears and does different things. It's basically running a bunch of tiny little oscillators through a section of audio, which is granular, and you can shape all those.
Yeah, that's effectively what I'm trying to build.
That would be sweet to
That's what I
mess
like.
with. When it comes to like the weird, like I guess you'd say more modern types of synthesis, I'm not as up as I've been with like the more retro, like just the standard stuff. But
Right.
so like I kind of have an idea, like a feeling of how it works, but not so much a concrete. Like I couldn't really go into and teach it, but I can kind of like get the gist of it. I've gotten enough of an understanding to get it to work the way I want.
Right. Well, I mean, that's the key.
So, like for instance, in here it's got some wavetables. The square wave. There's one called Fat,
Sounds fat.
and that is really fat. It's got some gnarly sounds in it. I mean, dude. And here's another one called Fat 2. Just it gets very throaty in there. I like to use those behind like the other synths because they can give more of a bass that the synth doesn't typically do with its synths or with its oscillators.
Right.
The oscillators seem a little weak to me on this thing, but I wonder if that's why they included a lot of these bassier sounding wavetables, just to kind of beef it up, I would guess.
That would make sense.
It's just got like more bass in it, which I like. I think what you'd have to do too is keep the bass in there, but then turn one of the oscillators up high. It's got a really cool sound. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of cool.
Interesting.
There's sine wave in here. There's an air one, which is cool because it gets more like higher pitch stuff. I forgot about this one. Just, it's like, it's kind of like noise, but then you can find that in there. So it's like it was like some kind of airy instrument. So I guess you could use it for like a flute or something. Maybe. It's got a little wind noise in it. Maybe if I can. I don't know if
Just
you could use it for
get rid of the attack, and then you'd sound like a flute.
Yeah. There's like a little bit of a.
Yeah, it's amazing.
You could
That's
also
the kind of stuff I like.
Yeah, the oscillator or the LFO in here, you can have it in the patching in the menu. You can actually tell it to control just the shape of the third oscillator or the wavetables. And that makes some really cool effects.
Is that what's doing that kind of little bit of like modulated thing
I think
there?
it is.
Because I really, really do like that.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay. I like
I
it.
like that more. Let's put it this way. I like that more than detuning. Always. It's so much more natural.
I like that build up and then you can clean it.
just like how it messes with the pitch when they get mixed together like that. That's good.
Yeah, that is gnarly. I like that a lot. So. Yeah, it seems to be working fine. At least, so I have all the sums of loops going to the out and its own bus, and then the bus is getting recorded, and then your channels are being recorded into that same bus. So everything
Right.
just kind of like as a tree cycles down, like a funnel.
Eventually get some somewhere.
And now it's a 2 bus like it always has been. So the goal would be to eventually have the looper setup, which I can put on any Logic rig, if that's the way we stay. I can put on any Logic rig. I think I can also put it in. No, I don't know if I could put it in main stage and it'd work like that, because I think it's reliant somewhat on the sequencer.
What do you mean?
I don't know. I have not done much with main stage, but I'm wondering if I could build this in main stage, because then I could just do what we're doing now with that, and then take the out of the computer and run it back into the mix board with that stuff.
Yeah.
And then it's just all on its own rig.
I mean, you have all the same pieces there. Really.
Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing really I'm entirely using Logic plugins for it. So
yeah, it's all stuff that would be there then too.
Mm-hmm.
I would say you have as much or more flexibility in that environment than you would anywhere else. So
okay,
if you've already got it working in here the way you want, it wouldn't take you very long to build the same thing inside of main stage.
I think the other thing I could do that would be really cool is, I mean, I think of ideas that I could do this, and this is just until I get a Ableton rig probably, because I really do think I'm going to go that direction eventually. I could set up one of these knobs to change the tempo of the whole session, but that would fuck with the recording. So I don't want to. I could do that with like another rig where I can also change the tempo, and that'll change the global tempo of everything just with a knob on a MIDI controller. So
right, but at that point too, you're talking about that rig effectively functioning as an instrument, right?
Yeah.
So you don't care if it starts, stops,
right,
cuts,
right,
whatever.
right.
It's not.
It's more freedom.
Nothing really important is running off of it.
Exactly.
It's just a generator.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I think I want to approach it, because I want everything to be on this table and not reliant on the computer sitting behind me. I'm constantly checking it to make sure my buses are turning on and off properly, or like to see what's on, because I have no feedback over here. So
right. Well, that's another thing you can do inside of main stage.
Oh, right. You can
know.
send lights and stuff. Oh, that's good.
Definitely.
So yeah, it was really fun programming this and learning a MIDI environment. I really had fun with that. And finally too, because up until that point, Logic will change their controls on you if you add buses or add things. But in the environment, it just stays tethered to whatever you set it to. So it's a lot better that way. But that stops the recording. I could set another one to just pick up recording where I left off, which I haven't done yet. But yeah, I mean, it works pretty well.
Proof of concept, at least.
Yeah.
It's kind of what we're going for.
Yeah. And I also have it where we could, you could use this if you want. I was debating whether I should have put this in front of you to mess with it if you wanted to, because then you could add stuff to it. Because the way it works then is you could construct some kind of cool tracker system, and then that could be running maybe on a mute, and then you could bring that stuff back in if you want later. It could be all rhythmic stuff too, along with what you're doing. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of ways, because remember when we were thinking of cool ways to do this? I was trying to figure out a way where we each have a hand in what everyone's doing. We're all hand holding. So something you're working on is affecting what I'm working on. Something I'm working on is affecting what you're working on. And I was trying to start heading in that direction where we're bridging that gap. I think another thing would be cool in terms of a looper setup is if we both had access to this thing. So we can, either one of us could say, hey, I want a loop here, and they can press. Or
you could have more than one of them too.
And you could have, yeah, exactly. You could have multiple. So where everyone kind of they're in charge, oh, I didn't like what you did there. I'm going to clear that. Or I do like that. I want to turn that up a little bit. Send it. And also I have it where each loop individually sends to a delay reverb bus that can control the volume of both of those here. So I can send the instrument directly into it. So like, for instance, yeah, so I can turn the volume up of the instrument here. You know, however much, and that also is affecting how loud it is going into the looper. And then this is sending it to the delay and reverb channel here. And then that's going to be recorded dry in here though. So when it records, it's going to record as if that's off. And then when it gets to the looper, it just sends the loop channel into the delay recorder on its own separate channel. So that way, anything I record on the delay and reverb is only affected pre-note, or how do you put that? Like they're separate. So the loops have their own effect and they won't get recorded onto the delay and reverb doesn't get recorded into the loop. The delay and reverb is after the loop and after the instrument, but that's just because the instruments are bypassing the effect send and going straight to the loop. And so when I record, it doesn't multi-layer delay and reverbs. It get chaotic and loud.
Right.
So yeah, it's a pretty cool little system. And then the clears work out so well. Like I can just do that on the fly. That was one of the big problems too. Like you could record stuff, but then when you want, like if you messed up, you had to like up until that point, I had to figure out a way to stop it and clear it, right? So I was stopping the whole thing and starting it over. And it's like, well, then I lost everything because it's all in the delays. And when you start and stop it, screws it up. So
Right.
So I had to figure out how to do that while the thing was still running. And I found out that it just so happens that when you press or turn on and off the delay, the recording doesn't stop. It just shuts off the plugin. And when you turn it back on, the delay's cleared as if it just got loaded. So
interesting.
So yeah, you can just and number 3, channel 3 actually has 4 delays like built in to make it the delay as long or the loop as long as it is. So I had to figure out how to tether to all 4 when I press it, and so one button turns them all off and turns them all back on. So it was pretty cool. It was just fun, like a puzzle, trying to figure out how it all works. And so I imagine like when I move on to like, you know, other rigs that is very MIDI intuitive, I'll be able to have a better grasp just from the knowledge I gained in that world, just kind of how the routing works and stuff.
Right.
So yeah, I guess like we've been going for about an hour and 15. So, I mean, and we had some really good jams in there. And the audio looked good. I was monitoring it, making sure we didn't peak at all, even though we didn't have that limiter. But yeah, everything looks good. And
well, at least we. Oh wow, what happened?
I don't know.
I got too close. You're too close, man. There's more. There we go. There's more proximity than I was expecting. That's all.
Yeah.
I boosted the bass a little too much.
So,
but
what,
yeah.
What do you think? Did you feel like it flowed pretty nicely? Like in terms of, I mean, we kind of got locked into a tempo, but
yeah, I probably should have been paying more attention. I'll be honest with you. I have no focus today, like 0.
That's okay.
In fact, it might even be negative amounts of focus.
Oh, wow.
So at some point it just turned into, I'm just listening for something that doesn't piss me off. And when I hear that, I just want to hear more of it.
You made some really good
So that's
sounds.
that's all I had to contribute today.
That's okay. That's all you bring what you can. And I really enjoyed what you created. So, yeah. I'm going to continue working on this stuff and trying to figure out other ways to kind of include people. I mean, there's still a third spot open for a guitar player to sit in here and tool around if they want. So
it's true.
And then also, I want to hook up I might even borrow back that Voice Live and try to use it here again for like some vocal stuff.
Yeah, do that.
It'd be really cool to actually plug that in, have it set up with it. I'm gonna get another MIDI controller, I think, and then have that one have its own MIDI controllers. They can you can harmonize your voice with the controller, which would be cool. So, and then maybe have my sister come through and do a set with us, because I think with the way we built it up, she'll be able to feel real comfortable just like adding stuff to it. And I want her voice to be in the loop somehow too. That would be really cool. But I'm still thinking all that through. So, all right. Well, anything we got Sunday? Have you heard it for anything yet?
I haven't really started anything. Like I said, hopefully I have more clear thinking about it between now and then. But yeah, just probably usual Sunday, I'm thinking. I did some playing around yesterday with just some of the gain structures and kind of the mix of everything. I spent probably 2 hours yesterday just practicing drums, and that was fun. So I got it sounding pretty good, I feel like. I'm still waiting for that magical moment when we have a full group.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I don't have to do anything else, like, because I'd really like to.
Yeah.
To do some quality recordings down there. So hopefully that's kind of the next move for everything. But having a good time anyways, and this is fun too.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to having people come over and jam at your place, because it's just really, really, really easy just to get down there. You know, you just got to plug in your instrument basically and start playing, and everything's set up. You don't have to worry about much.
Yeah.
Just bring some headphones and your instrument. So, yeah, with that, I guess I'll say we're going to try to do this every Tuesday, and every Sunday we'll be doing the Vibe Unit thing as usual. So, yeah, I think on this Sunday, if we hear from someone, we might be able to get them in there, and we'll jam with more people. If not, we'll probably just be you and me hanging out again, which is cool. Although I have heard there's a couple people interested in coming through, so like one person, Katie, maybe we'll see.
I need to come up with a good way for, like, I guess not like a sign up, but like some way to just for folks to indicate
that their intentions
that
are
whether they are or not planning on being there.
Yeah.
Because it's always weird how this works, but it's like the weeks when it feels like nobody's gonna show up are the weeks that I end up talking to people later, and they'd be like, "Yeah, I just figured there's gonna be a bunch of people, so I didn't bother to like hit you up or whatever."
And if they could just look at who's gonna be there,
so if there's some easy way to know, like, I don't know, that's still something I'm chewing on.
Yeah,
because it feels to me that people don't know whether they should or shouldn't come, and they like don't want to interrupt you or I.
Yeah.
By like calling us or whatever, so they just don't just show up because they're like, "Oh, I know you said I could just show up," but it's like, what if there's already, a bunch of people there or whatever?
That's a good point. Yeah,
So
we'll
I
have to
don't know.
figure out some way to do that.
There's further tuning that needs to happen there,
And
I think.
If anyone is watching this at some point has an idea on how we could do that, or like indicate to you what we're up to, that would be good to know too.
I mean, like, think for anybody who's ever used it, it's like think planning center, but with no like future plan capability. It's just like just show me next week, and everybody just clicks yes or no.
Yeah.
So it just shows or maybe, right? Like think like a Facebook event, but like it's just auto generated every week and gets dumped after the week. Like none of this shit needs to stay around.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I just need to know, like, and even if it was 2 weeks ahead or whatever, just like whatever you're thinking, like it's not a set in stone kind of thing, just a way to know. Because I do not enjoy effectively having to text 12 people or whatever just to try to get an idea.
Yeah, there'd be a good way to do that through like public channels, and then maybe we can find someone who can kind of relay that information to us so we can keep doing what we're doing on a Sunday. Like if someone does decide, it so happens to decide, hey, I might actually have time to come over today, maybe they can really relay that somehow, and we can get the information through public channels. I don't know, but it'd be better to know it ahead of time, right?
Yeah, I haven't figured it out yet. So
all right, well,
but until then, I mean, it's not bothering me to hear from anybody. So if you're feeling one type of way or the other, just let us know.
It has been there. It's you mentioned like it seems like no one's able to come, or they're not sure if they can come, and then they think there's people there, and then it seems like there's some weeks that we get so many people there. It's like, well, what do we do with all these? So it's kind of cool. Like
lately, it's been like kind of one or the other.
Yeah.
Like we've either had really full sessions with like, everybody we're expecting, or it's like, oh, I guess nobody's coming through today,
right?
Which is fine. It's it's no big deal, but it's nice to have some idea what you're planning on doing.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
well, with that said, I guess we'll start wrapping it up here. This was session 9.
Wow.
And still on my channel. I'm lazy in some ways and productive in others.
We got to get that stuff done so we can start getting some promo and
yeah, that's true. I'll
actually
work
be
on
able to shout stuff out.
Yeah,
knowing that it isn't going to just disappear in however long.
Well, it won't. I mean, I'm pretty certain I can migrate videos, so I don't think that should be a problem. We can move anything over to any channel, can't you? I'm pretty certain.
I mean, I could be a millionaire too, but
but why would you be, right?
It won't just happen.
Yeah.
Maybe, unless I get hit by a bus or something.
Unless Dogecoin takes off. Ouch. That hurt.
Yeah.
Instant karma.
That's what you get for shilling the cryptocurrency on the stream.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah. Everybody knows the big business plan is you start your own cryptocurrency, right? And give yourself some stake in it.
Inflate the fuck out of all your viewers.
And then just go around and just don't talk about anything else. Just tell them how it's their ticket to paradise.
And
or
it's
whatever,
better
right?
if you pretend you didn't have anything to do with it and it's a fun coin just that you really want.
Oh yeah, you just pretend you have no involvement in it.
Yeah, you're just like, I just found this coin. It just seems like it's gonna do.
You just shill it on the side, and then all of a sudden, enough people buy it that you've got like some sort of supposed value wrapped up in it, and it's just like dump all your holdings because they were worth nothing to start with, and now they're worth something. I mean, it could be a penny a piece. It's still free money for you. And everybody's doing it now, too. It's kind of disgusting, actually.
Yeah, it is. I've seen several people. Some people...
It's kind of the perfect scam, though, because it's like... the idea of it isn't that complex, I guess, in the sense that you're buying something hoping it becomes worth more. I mean, it's just, in a sense, it's pitched as like a standard kind of investment. But it also is like one of these things that like nobody can really say, well, why? There's never an answer to that question. So it's like this perfect like black box shrouded in mystery. Like you don't need to know why this is, why this is modern and, all this and that, how this is the future. Like we can sit here and talk about how like technologically advanced this is, but it's like at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I mean, you could have a piece of paper, which we do, like currency, like you could have a piece of paper and somebody, the whole buying and selling on speculation. I mean, you could do that with anything. It doesn't matter what it is. But the fact that there's nothing to like show anybody, and it's like you can basically say like, oh, by design, like, it's cryptography. Like no one knows how this works. It's magic. Like just don't worry about it.
But people do know, right? I mean,
I don't think so. I don't think anybody knows how cryptography works on like a basic level.
Well, I mean, but there are people out there that do know. Like
definitely.
someone designed it is what I'm saying. I'm
not saying no one understands how blockchain works. I'm just saying like the average person who's falling for the hey, get in on this thing so you can get rich. Like they don't.
In my experience, I've seen a lot of younger people struggle with that because their adults don't know what it is and they don't know any better.
Yeah.
So there's no education for it, and so they think it's some magic thing, as you said, and then they get taken. Predatory.
But in fairness, that exists in every other market too. Like there's predatory practices in every other kind of like lending and money transfer that's around. So it's not like, some new class of fraud that like was not possible before is now made possible by blockchain. Like I don't believe that at all.
Is it
I
bad
just
that
think it's more out in the open.
I tend to think everything's a scam, like everything. I thought credit cards were a scam.
I mean,
I
they
still
are
do.
essentially.
I kind of think that, but I have one. I kind of,
Same.
I feel like I can trust it more.
Well, it's more about, do you trust you? Because someone's extending you credit.
That's what it comes down to. Like,
I don't trust. It's not about trusting anybody. It's like, do I trust me
yeah,
to not be an idiot and buy on credit?
it just seems like
If I can't, if I can't afford to pay for it, whatever it is.
I can't think of any good examples other than credit cards, but there's like so many things out there that I think like when something I think about this a lot, or something I'm confronted with, I'm like, man, that feels really scammy to me.
In my opinion, auto loans are like incredibly predatory and scammy. Like, can you imagine like buying a depreciating asset on credit?
The moment you take it off the lot, it's
No, I don't just mean that. I
values
just mean
down.
like you're wearing it out like actively and regularly by design. Like, what it's supposed to do
and
is you're supposed to drive it, and you're the one taking on all the risk. You have to insure the thing because it's not your asset, so you can't insure it for what you think it's worth to you. You have to insure it for what it's worth to who you borrowed from. It's just a mess. I don't get it.
Yeah.
But my point is, that's what everybody's encouraged to do. I know people have car notes on like a $3 or $4 grand car, and you're like, why would you ever borrow money for that?
Yeah.
But I guess if you don't have it, you don't have it. I don't know. I'd rather be carless than have a payment on a car. That's me.
Yeah.
But I think that it's gotten to a point where just easy credit is available, and with interest being so just stupid low. I mean, I remember in the mid early 2000s starting to see companies that, because like shopping online was pretty new at the time, right? Like I remember when Amazon became a thing and they only sold books. But the point is, like, everybody, when they started selling online, like that became like one of the selling points for why you would do that over something else. And eventually that edge kind of just is gone, I feel like.
Yeah. Definitely.
But it's okay because now I can get it's funny too, because now that everything's available online, people have a certain expectation of stuff too, though. Like I said, like it got to a point where everywhere you could check out, they'd offer you like, we'll give you term, you don't have to pay anything on this, 0% for this. And I remember seeing it. I've seen it on everything, man. I remember when phones, now they just straight up like screw you and just spread the money over a bunch of payments, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't even get to choose anymore, really. But I remember when they started doing that, I've seen furniture be sold that way. I've seen cars be sold that way. I mean, there's nothing out there that you can't buy on someone else's money right now. And it could be some weird knickknack like on the internet, You'd be checking out on eBay and they'll be like, do you want to pay for this later? I mean, that's how they market it to you.
Yeah.
And who the hell isn't going to go, yeah, I'm down to not pay for this now? They're not thinking about it.
But like that seems, to me, when I'm confronted with that, I don't know, like, why do I think, oh, that's not good?
The only place that that somebody could, I shouldn't say this because someone's going to take advantage of it. The only place that probably could work on me is probably like at a Sweetwater. That's probably the only place where you could convince me.
Oh, I see. When it's about something you care about and you want right away, it changes things. Because I don't care about vehicles, but I do care about synthesizers. So it's
But here's the difference. I'm not driving my synthesizer out on roads with a bunch of other idiots driving synthesizers.
So you're saying the risk is way higher.
Way higher.
Because you have more control over the quality.
Yeah, I'm down to take a risk on something where I control all the parameters.
Right? That makes sense.
Like if you want, if you're gonna sell me on, we'll just drop some random thing. How about like a real Teletronics, LA2A, right? Get your money out, boys. $5,500 or whatever. I don't need one, but say I did, and I was convinced I had to have it. That's gonna be a way easier sell. To me, that's an easy sell in the way that buying a house is an easy sell. I'm gonna live here for a while. In fact, I'm going to live here longer than it's going to take for me to pay for it. With certain equipment, it's like, I'm going to own this longer than it's going to take me to pay for it. Depending on what that is, I'm down. I really see that as an investment. But that's just me. I don't know. There's not that many things I feel that way about. I don't feel that way about computer equipment or anything like that. But when it comes to things that I use to make art, if it has the value of it has nothing to do with its cost, if that makes sense. That they're not really connected to each other. So you can convince me of all sorts of things about the cost if the value of it is high enough to me.
Yeah.
But there isn't really anything else that works that way, I guess.
There's so many people who want the latest and greatest thing, and I see like 2022 vehicles, right? And I see them on the road sometimes. There was one Jeep, maybe a Land Rover that Ash and I saw, and this thing was 2022. We looked it up because we'd never seen it before. It was brand spanking new, right? And that kind of sucks for them, I guess, because they're going to be probably paying that on loan or credit. Maybe they did buy it. I don't want to assume too much, but point is, the benefit to that for me as someone who's looking for vehicles, a lot of those people who do want the latest newest things, like they have vehicles that they're trying to sell too, or like get rid of, right? So like I've seen a lot of like nice vehicles for sale that are just like around 10 grand, but they're like really nice cars, you know, that would be worth way more. So it's, I don't know, I think that's kind of nice from my perspective. But I wouldn't want to take on that risk like you were mentioning.
Yeah, not for something that like in a sense could just get destroyed in an instant. Like I don't know, man. I just don't. I'm not really interested in taking that kind of risk for something that I can't have some sort of control over.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, if it's rack gear or something, it's like, dude, half the stuff I buy, it's like I'm not buying it for much less than probably what it sold for originally. In a lot of cases. I mean, I'm getting a deal because it's used or older. But my point is, it's not like I'm picking this stuff up for $2 or whatever. No one cares. It's like if it works, if it does what it's supposed to do, and there's nothing wrong with it, I mean, it's fine. So it's like if it's gear that's just going to sit in a rack all its life, I mean, that's one of the things you even see people mention in like listings on eBay. You know, they say like minimal rack rash. Because they're trying to let you know, like, the thing hasn't even been pulled in and out of a rack enough times for you to be able to tell it's been touched and like messed with at all. And then you find that, and I'm not saying this is the kind of thing, like I don't buy gear with the idea of like, oh, this is going to be worth something someday. I don't speculate on gear. I buy gear that has value to me and I like.
Yeah.
But there's always that chance too. I mean, everybody knows somebody with the story of like, oh, dude, yeah, when I was a kid, I had this whatever thing, and then you know I was an idiot, and I let it go for $20 or you know. There's always some story
Pikachu
about something you wish you had, you know,
that Blastoise holographic
anymore.
card.
So, I look at it that way. A lot of the stuff, it's like, who knows? Maybe certain stuff you have, it's like 50 years go by and all of a sudden everybody wants one and you're one of only 17 people who own one. You know, I mean, that's a cool thing. At that point, like the device or the object itself is an art.
Yeah.
It is a piece of art at that point because like it is rare and represents something specific that can't exactly be recreated because it's the sum of its parts and the people who put their time into it. It's like you could reissue it, but it's not the same.
No, at least it doesn't have the history.
Right.
Wow.
So there's always a chance of that too. You know? I feel less that way with a lot of the stuff that's just all super like digital and whatnot because it's like, how long is this stuff really going to last? We'll see. But that's another reason that I'm kind of in agreement with you that I like when you have standalone stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's like, this isn't going to stop working because there's no Wi-Fi or your subscription isn't active or some stupid crap like that.
Right.
Like, that's one of the reasons I kind of stopped acquiring a lot of plugins because it's like, okay, even if your plugin's on sale.
Yeah.
Like, I saw one literally this morning that I've been looking at for a long time. It's on a crazy good sale. It's like $29 or something. It's one of my favorite EQs. I'm not buying it because you got to have an iLock. Which I'm not against the concept, but like, I hate the idea of you're going to pay us for this thing and it's supposed to be you bought a thing, but it turns out you didn't buy the thing. You bought, I don't know. It's so weird, dude. It's so weird.
Yeah, that stuff can get taken away from you easily.
No, it isn't. No, it's that it doesn't fail open. Like if that company were to just disappear, it doesn't fail in a state where it goes, "Oh, well, we don't have any way to check this license, so I guess we'll just let it work." It all fails closed. So the default is it doesn't work at all.
Yeah.
And our dead man switch is keeping it alive when it should work the opposite way. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Where eventually, after some period of time,
yeah, it just goes.
It ought to just say, look.
Maybe that will become the standard soon.
No. There's too much money to be made in subscriptions.
I mean, yeah, but I think once enough people complain about it and worry about it, it's gonna, like, companies will start doing that.
Nope, because they're way happier about getting a bunch of stuff for what they perceive to be less money. Like I read a bunch of feedback and stuff with people when Slate Digital started offering their plugins as a subscription. And everybody's raving about it, being like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I get access to everything for, $29 or whatever." It's like, yeah, but that's every month. But those people are looking at it going, that's just what it costs for me to be involved in this. Like they've worked that into like their cost to be involved or whatever. And I don't have like a cost like that in my head. Maybe that's the thing is I've never operated that way.
It seems like
I like capital costs, not ongoing costs.
To push on that a little bit, I wanted to say,
but a lot of these kids, real quick, I was going to say that are probably into that are also, they grew up in a society that was by majority kind of already operating that way. So everything they've ever seen is something you pay for access to. So it's not as much of a slap in the face to as it is to those of us who have just, I guess, been lucky enough to deal with companies that actually do operate with like a first sale doctrine, right? Like we sold you the thing, what you do with it after that is up to you kind of thing.
Yeah.
You don't find much of that anymore. In fact, a lot of companies are actively working to make sure that first sale doesn't apply. And there's a lot of controversy over that too, with the whole like the idea of like when you buy something, like do you have the right to do anything with it? Like if you want to repair your iPhone, is that illegal? Like people are actually talking about that now. And I think a lot of their arguments are BS. Because they're like framing it into a super like black and white kind of thing when there's really a ton of gray.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that people are at least talking about it. Because they're looking at it, like I said, with like a phone or something. It's like, wait, so you're telling me that I spent $900 on this thing and I can't whatever. So I think if nothing else, the economics of it are starting to make sense to certain folks where they go, wait a minute, like, am I the customer or not? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, am I your client? Like, I bought the thing, but you're not going to let me do anything I want to do with it. So it's like, who actually owns this? Like, how do you define ownership at that point? And I think people are starting to realize they don't really own anything. Like, you don't own your iPhone, really, because you don't get to decide what runs on it or what doesn't, which is fine. I'm not saying there's anything inherently wrong with that. I'm just saying, like, it's like the illusion's collapsing.
Yeah.
Where people are just realizing, like, it's not maybe for better or worse, just like none of this is really mine. I'm just like being allowed to use it or interact with it. And I feel like nobody can keep me from like touching this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Once it's in my hands, it just is what it is.
That's kind of been my thought.
So I'm very on board with that. And I feel the same way with like a lot of things too, where it's like half the time I'm looking at hardware and it's like, oh yeah, there's a plugin for that. It's like, yeah, there is. But if it's something I'm literally dropping in everything all the time, maybe owning hardware of it is not a bad idea.
I think owning multiple DAWs is a good idea because, like, or having everything work to a degree where like your recording could be done in any media, like any kind of DAW or any kind of we could do what we're doing here with the exception of the looper part. We could do this into a tape machine and
Sure.
And it'll record. Like, the point is, what we plug into doesn't matter. It's what we're like creating that does. So I think that's cool.
Yeah, so it's like if all the pieces that are generating a portion of the experience, in a sense, are all, when I say standalone, I don't mean they're like none of them talk to each other. I mean, clearly we got MIDI running all over and whatever, right? But yeah, I just like I like all of that being in front of the record process. And, you know, Vibe
Yeah.
Units kind of showed us some of that too.
Oh, definitely. We learned a
You
lot
know?
through that.
Just like, I'd rather have it there and documented and reasonable than have gotten lost in the weeds and not clicked record or not bothered to, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Because the experience is what I like recording, and we found that through Vibe Unit. Like, it's been really approachable for a lot of our musician friends that work well in that environment. I think it marries the idea of the experience with the recording process very well, because when you do track by track recording, you kind of lose out on that energy, the experience. And again, like, that's okay, but when you're coming up with ideas or trying to express things in the moment, you can't beat just having everyone playing along and just coming up with things and things changing in real time and that tangible electricity you feel when you're doing it.
There's also the portion of it that is related to, I think, and this is probably more of a work ethic thing than a conceptual thing, but like working in the box made me, I think, lazier in a certain way. Like, it's weird because it's lazier but also more work.
It's a different kind of work.
So the point is, like, where I'm really going with this is, like, it's lazy because you're sitting there going, I don't care what it sounds like. Like, it's all direct anyway. It's all gonna just be in strips and in the box, and we'll plug in and out and do whatever has to be done to get it to the finish line, right?
Yeah.
So you almost don't care about the source. You're just like, it is what it is, you know, and you just leave it. And then end up having to spend all this time later being like, it isn't right, or it isn't what I want, I guess. That's a better way to put it. And it's like, then you start looking at it going, how many hours do I spend on this before I go, I don't know, I think it just needs to be re-recorded. But then you go back to re-record and you still haven't fixed any of those problems. Right? Because you're just going to like record dry again.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you know what I mean? And I've done plenty of projects like that where like I've gone back to do re-records on takes of stuff and didn't really change much about the source. And then couldn't figure out why it wasn't very different. Like, man, I figured this would be way better, you know, given that it all got retracked and everything's in tune and all that. And you just keep cycle. Feedback loop, man, and nothing ever actually improves.
Yeah.
And I think not having any of the, I guess, the digital fluff as far as what we're doing recording wise for Vibe Unit, it's just like you don't get a second chance at it because everything that's coming into the DAW is already wet.
Yep. It kind of forces you.
So if you don't like
to
it,
make
like
decisions.
fix it.
Yeah.
You know, like get where you want to be before the recording starts or whatever. Because with a couple of exceptions where we've managed to, I think, really insert outboard gear in the places where it will make the most impact. There's more that could be done for sure. I mean, there's never an end, right? But at the basic level, you get nothing. You get a what would it be, a 4-band parametric, and that's it.
Yeah,
so it's like when we were talking to Wes earlier, right, about like overdrives. You know, it's like do I like tube screamers and that kind of thing? Like, yeah, but I don't like the mid hump on them. Right. I never have. Why? Because if you're adding a bunch of this mid range and getting rid of a bunch of low end, and then you run that through a bunch of other crap into an amp that also boosts the mids and also is not responding super well on the low end, you end up with this just like super like mid heavy, just in my opinion, just kind of destroyed guitar sound. And I'm not really that into it. And I don't think it's a bad sound necessarily. It's just, it's hard to work with. Which, like, having that like that EQ pedal that I picked up is super, super nice, because that's something you could drop at the end of the whole chain and kind of maybe fix some of that and get it back to where you want.
Yeah.
You know, if you were just recording that into a computer, you'd probably just be lazy and say, well, if this is what you want, this is good enough, fine, whatever, right? Figuring I'll just EQ it later.
Yeah.
But I've been way happier trying to take the time. It's like, do I like what I'm hearing in my headphones? Because that's what's going to tape. Like, if it's not, you know what I mean? If you think you don't like it, fix it, because there isn't going to be any going back and fixing it later.
Hold that thought.
Just close the door.
Yeah, so you have to make decisions. I mean, when you record into a DAW, what's it called? The Baskin-Robbins problem, where like you're confronted with so many choices.
There's too many choices to
you
make.
just can't make a choice, and then you end up making the same choices, as you said. This feedback loop. Yeah, I agree with you, man.
And I think the most valuable thing, weirdly, of the whole, I mean, however many sessions at this point, it's like that's been the biggest takeaway, I think, for me. And especially the more I've done drum recording, it's one of those things where it's like, you're not going to be able to fix anything later. And it's like, I know for me personally, it's like, I'm sitting here telling myself now, every time I sit down to do it, it's like, you're going to hate this later. Like, don't kid yourself. Like, one little thing that's wrong, and you're going to be pissed listening to it later.
It's probably a better mindset.
So it makes me be really anal about it. Like, I ran so many times back to the board last night to make minor adjustments to one thing, which is literally the snare mic. I bet you I made 10 trips to the board. And not making big moves, just
little tiny moves.
Little tiny amounts where you're like, because I'm listening to it going, there's nothing wrong with this sound. I wouldn't care if all I was hearing was monitoring. But when I know that what I'm hearing is what's getting recorded, and I know, like, man, I think that's just a little too much snare. It's like, that's worth running over there to take that amount off with the fader that you can barely see, because when I walk back there and hear it, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's closer.
Is it difficult to document like your work on that?
It's impossible. Which that's the part I don't like.
Yeah. I could see that being frustrating.
Yeah, there's no recallability, nothing like that. That kind of sucks, because it turns into one of those magical moments kind of thing where when you get it, you know you're probably not going to get it quite like that again.
Yeah.
So that kind of sucks. I guess that's less of a big deal if you're doing, like, say you're doing final drums for a record or something. Fine. I'm planning on getting it, recording everything I need and whatever before I end up touching it or setting this up to do anything else. Like, because I don't want anything to change. But like my midweek practicing combined with whatever we're doing Sunday, it's just like, I don't know. It's hard to keep it all in some way. I mean, you could take a picture of it, right? But there's just, I mean, how hard you were hitting the drums even varies, right? Like how hard I was hitting yesterday, that same set of levels maybe wouldn't sound the right way if I was really babying the drums.
Yeah.
But I was feeling a type of way, and so it's smacking them a certain way, and then you get it all set the way you want to hear it. But it's like, I don't know if it would sound the same way today, like if I went down there to play. So there isn't really consistency in it.
So in a way, that kind of gives it, there's a little bit of a charm.
A little bit. Yeah, because like I said, it's a moment that you're capturing. Like you were saying, it's like, not to say there was something super special or deep about the moment. It's just the moment may not be something you can easily recreate later. So it just forces you to think about, like, all right, like, how much do I like this? And if I do really, really like this, how willing am I to sit here and like get done what I need to get done while I know it's a certain way? That's hard for me.
It also forces you to get it done. That's interesting. I think you're right.
Because you might lose it. You might, if you really like it that much and you walk away from it, it might be gone forever. Maybe. I mean, you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah. So when you have people come through and they're, like Wes, we mentioned him, and he's playing drums, do you like that situation where you have someone just hitting the drums and you can kind of tweak things and then...
Yeah, but that sucks, like I said, because Wes and I, for example, are very different players.
So you can tune up...
Wes, generally speaking, I would say hits he hits a lot harder than I do generally. My default is pretty actually light. That's mostly from playing a lot in churches and a lot of places that didn't have acoustic treatment or were small rooms where you got to really kind of hold back, which is hard to do on drums.
Yeah.
And then, like, I can hit hard, but it's like someone has to like be really like encouraging that, right? Like, hey, I really need you to hit harder. It's like, okay, if that's really what you want.
Your default is pretty quiet.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like when I mix for what sounds good, the way I articulate drums, it isn't gonna sound. It's not that there's anything wrong with what Wes would play. It's just the levels are gonna be so different. Even the character of the drums. I mean, when you hit them harder, the way they decay changes, and the way the pitches are changes. The way you'd probably do almost everything: EQs, compression ratios, thresholds. It all changes as soon as someone else sits down.
Just a moving target, and that's kind of fun though to kind of dial it in for someone else, like because you can.
That's
sit
just
there.
it. I like it when someone else is providing the source. I do not enjoy it when I have to do it for myself.
Well, especially if you're walking across the room every single time, I can see that becoming a time-consuming process.
It's also one too, though. Keep in mind where you can't really, some things you can't fix because you can't be in two places at once.
And how careful
if I can hear it and I can sit here and go, there's too much snare. Okay, we're talking levels, right? I can experiment with moving things until I get in the right place. But if it's something like, you know, I think that floor tom sounds tubby. Well, it's like at that point, it's like, how good are your ears, right? Because like you can go and make a rough adjustment on that EQ, but it's analog. It's a turn pot. It's not exact. So even if it says, you know, you got the little indent on the pot at 200 hertz, it's like that may be 200, it may be 220, it may be 230. You really have to go by what it sounds like. And if no one's playing while you're moving the knob, you don't get to hear it. There's no feedback to know, was that the right move or the wrong move? And so it doubles and triples the amount of trips back to the board because you're like, I was wrong about that. And you got to go run back and change it or try something different.
Even in here when I'm recording. Okay, so here, let me lead into what I'm going to say because this is interesting. So you're going to walk to the mix board and then you're going to walk back. In that time, you're moving air, you're moving around the set. What kind of things change every time you get up? Like, ooh, I bumped something. I mean, I'm sure you're really careful, right?
I don't care about that really much because that doesn't have really any effect.
So that was going to lead into this. So when I'm recording like guitar, and sometimes I like having someone in here just to hit the record button because just the movement of moving forward sometimes puts things in like a different place, you know, puts things like I feel like I'm not sitting the same way, or I'm like, you know, just little things like that. Or
when it comes to recording, I'll tell you right now, that's a boon, man. When you got somebody around that can, even if all they're doing is pressing a button to start and stop and nothing else.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Oh, yeah. And so sometimes I'll ask Ash to come in here and do it for me because it's like, I really got to get this part down, but I don't want to move my hands every single time. I just need to stay in this position. So it's kind of nice doing that.
I mean, that might be, I don't know if that's anything that you're like super interested in or anything like that, but there might be something fun to be had or done there as well. Like, I mean, you've done some mixing, right? Mm-hmm. Like maybe it'd be fun to try something like that. Like just grab some headphones and just pick one thing and say, I want this to sound good. I want smoking bass guitars.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, flatten everything out then.
Yeah.
What all do you have to touch to get the sound you want to hear, right? Like, so what do you think good drums sound like?
Yeah, you're playing on a drum set. Maybe I need to run. Well, that's what I was leading into. Maybe I need to be there running that mix board for you because I could just see that being really, really irritating.
And here's the other thing too. And this sounds so funny because it sounds like it's going to contradict everything I just said, but none of this would be a problem if I had dry recordings of everything.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like that's the trade-off you're always making. Now, there's a weird part of me that wishes I had both, right? Where like I want the dries, but I also want the two bus. Jeez. Which I don't think that's crazy. You just need more channels.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, there's only, you know, endless.
But that's also only getting rid of that's getting rid of the whole like, well, this is your safety net, right? Because you can go back and remix and re-EQ and re everything, basically everything but replay, right? When in reality, if it was right from at the very beginning, like you shouldn't need to do any of that, right?
Right.
So there's a part of me that goes like, it's what is like, it's like the security blanket, you know what I mean? It's like there's a certain safety in like, all right, I have dries, thank God, because this is really messed up. Where it's like part of me, it's like maybe I've had to make a bunch of really messed up recordings in the last year or 6 months or whatever to really realize that
Yeah.
I'm like, this is kind of crap. I'm not into this at all. It's like, well, why not?
Yeah.
And then I have to go fix it because it's like I don't have dries. So just hope to get it better next time. Be a little closer than you were, before.
We've had those drums sounding really good too. So you've definitely, in the last 6 months, have done some really cool stuff with that.
I'm really happy with what I got done yesterday too. But again, I was happy with what I could get out of it yesterday, right? Like if I went and sat down at it today, it'd probably be the same because it's still me.
Yeah.
And I haven't changed, I haven't moved anything. But a week from now, I don't know.
Yeah, I do like the discipline that comes with analog. I really do.
It's been a good thing. It's kind of like everything else though. It's like you have to like work within those limitations to figure out what sucks about them, but also like what was valuable about it too.
Yeah.
Like because there is something useful in it, but there's also certain things that like I wouldn't want to be trapped in that for, depending on what it is.
In a way, here we're doing kind of a marriage of the two, even right now. And
well, like I said, I think I would. Hold on one second.
Okay. Mine's still on. All right. Well, thanks guys for tuning in today. This was session 9. Appreciate you all for watching, and make sure you comment things you liked about it. Give us some feedback, and also tune in on Sunday to watch Vibe Unit. Really exciting things coming down the pipe for sure, and we will continue to do this, and appreciate you all. Thank you.